Now that our connection to the database is set up and configured within our program.cs, we are ready to go ahead and create our endpoints to manipulate data within the tables of our database. To do that, we need to generate some controllers. A controller is a class that is responsible of receiving HTTP requests and giving back answers based on what the HTTP request is about. So if we were to retrieve data, we have to send a GET request. If we want to post data or to save data, we will do a POST request. If we were to update data, we will do a PUT request. If we were to delete data, we have to send a delete request. And the controller is the one responsible for receiving or capturing or intercepting those requests and translate them to, let's say, actions within the database. To create controllers, we have a folder called controllers, and then within that folder we'll have a controller per table or a controller per model. So since we have 3 tables, we have 3 models here, and for each model we're going to create a controller. So we're going to start with the company's controller. To create company controller, we just right click on the controllers folder, then select add, select controller, then you'll have to navigate to API. After that, you'll be able to decide what to select. Empty controller will give you just an empty controller with no actions. Controller with read and write actions is another type of templates that will auto-generate some actions for you. We are interested in the API with actions using Entity Framework, since we are using Entity Framework here to scaffold. So we're going to use this so that we auto-generate all the actions. The get by ID, the post, the put, and the delete. So all of them will be automatically generated for me when I select the third template here. So once I select that, I'll have just to click on add. Then it will ask you about the model class that we're going to use and the context, which is the DB context. So we are going to start with the company. So I'll select the company model. Then the DB class or the DB context will be automatically selected for me, which is this class here. And that's it. So I can name my controller whatever I want. I will just leave it to the default name. Then I'll click on add. Once done, you will see that a controller is added under controllers called company's controller, and that controller will contain all kind of actions necessary for you to manipulate the data. So we have the get all companies, we have the get by ID, we have the put, so you have to put something, so you put a company with an ID, you have the post, which posts the data to the database. Then you have the delete. So the delete will call this method to make sure that the record that you're trying to delete exists already. Now that our controller is added, all you have to do is run the application to test out all the methods that are within this controller. To do so, you just click on run here, wait for it to run, then you'll have Swagger. So Swagger is a platform that is used by ASP .NET Core to let you test your APIs easily and quickly. So Swagger will present all the APIs that you have created within your application. So for now, we only have companies API, and that is the controller that we have created automatically. And that controller features 3 different or 5 different methods here. So you have the get, all companies, post a company, get by ID, so you have to supply an ID, then put a company you want to update, then delete companies if you want to delete a company by ID. Just to test any of the endpoints, you just need to click on it, then click on try it out. So this will give you an interface where you can introduce the info, like introduce the data or introduce the ID or introduce the information you'd like to do request, and then click on execute. For now, I'm going to execute the companies, get API companies, get all companies. When I execute, the result will show up here. And since I don't have any companies in the database, so the result is an empty array. We're going just to add few companies, or maybe add one company, and then we're going to execute this query to make sure that we have companies there. I'll go back to the database and try to add a company. So I'll have the three tables. I'm interested in only on adding a company entry. So I'll go to the company table, then click on edit top 20 rows. Then I'll introduce my company. But before doing that, we need to have an address. Since the address is a mandatory field, I'll just cancel adding the company first, and then I'll have to add an address before doing that. So the address, we have street number. I'll just put a random number there, and I'll put street name. Then I'll put the address line 2. I don't have address line 2. I'll put city 1 here. I'll put state 1, and I'll put country 1. Just some random entries there. Then I'll hit enter. So I have my address of ID 3. I'll have to reference this address within my company table. So I'll go and add a company right now that reference address 3. So company 1, the address is of ID 3. So now I'm able to add that, and my company ID is 5. Now that I have added the company, I can go back and execute the same query to see that I have a company returned as result. So I'll click on execute, and as you can see, I have one entry, which is company 1 with the ID 5 and the address ID of 3. So I can test the other API calls. So I can test the get by ID. Since I know that my company is of ID 5, I can go to get by ID and put 5, click on try it out, put 5 here. You will see that my information is returned correctly. Now that our get list and get by ID works well, we're going to test the post, the put, and the delete method. So to test the post, just open the post method from here, and then I'm going to copy this object and make sure that I create an object similar to that. So I'll click on try it out. Then I'll have to just delete all the other information that I don't need, except the name and the address ID. Even the ID is auto increment, so we are not going to save it or to send it. So I'm going to call it company sent from API, and then the address will be of ID 3. So once I execute this, I will see that my company is added to the database. So I'll just click on execute. Now, as you can see, I have a new ID for that company, and the company saved successfully. I can cross-validate that with the database. So I'll just go select all the companies that I have. As you can see, I have 2 companies, and one of them is the one that I have created. That's it for the post. Now we can test the execute or the put method. So to do that, I'm just going to retrieve the newly added record, which is ID 7, then execute. So I have the object here. I'll take it and then execute the put method. To execute the put method, just open the put and then click on try it out. Put 7 as an ID. I'm going to edit ID 7. Then put your new version of that company. So I call it updated here. Then execute. Just remove these because I don't need them. Just click on execute. And now I receive 200 response, meaning that the data is updated correctly in the database. I can check that by executing a query here. As you can see, the data is updated actually. Now I can try the delete. To try the delete, you just need to open the delete from here and then click on try it out. Put the ID you want to delete, then click on execute. So the data or the response was 200, so everything went well. I can check my data. And as you can see, the last company was removed. Now we are going to generate the other controllers. So I'll just go ahead and generate the controller for the address. I'll just close this application or stop the execution. Then I go add controller. Same thing, select API and API with controller with using an entity framework. And I'll go select the address this time. Click add. Same thing for the contact. We're going to do the same thing for generating the controller of the contact table. Now I'll right click, add new controller, select API, then click on add API controller with actions using entity framework. Click on add, then select the contact model and click on add to generate the controller. Same thing here, so you have all the actions for the contact and all the action for the address. So once you run, you will see that your new APIs added to your Swagger interface. So you have addresses, you have companies, and you have contacts. And you can try them out the same way we did try the company API. That's it for creating the APIs using ASP.NET and generating the models, the DB context, and scaffolding all together using Visual Studio. Thanks so much for watching. In the next video, we're going to cover how to build the front end that connect to this backend and manipulate the data using user interaction. Thank you so much.